van a ganar el partido. ¿Quién? ¿Nosotros? No, los jugadores del otro equipo. Hello everyone, I'm Prof. Bryce, today with part 2 of 5 ways to speak better Spanish. If you haven't seen our video before on improving your ability to produce those vowel sounds, go back and watch that part 1 before this one. Today we're going to give you the second tip, which is drop those pronouns. Before we continue, I want to invite you to subscribe. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our next video, part 3 of how to speak better Spanish. It's going to be great. It's going to be big league. You know, we come from the English language. We have pronouns. We always say I, we always say you, we always say he, we always say she before our verb. But in Spanish, it's different. You have to drop those pronouns if you want to sound more like a native speaker. But this tip is a little bit of a double-edged sword because if you're going to drop those pronouns, then you really have to understand the verb conjugation. We're going to talk about the present tense conjugation only today, but make sure you understand that verbs also change in the past tenses. There are 2 of them. They change in the present perfect, the past perfect, as well as the future tenses. So make sure you're understanding all of those. But before you go on to those, you'll probably want to get the present tense down and know them like the back of your hand. So Spanish verbs can be grouped into 3 categories: AR verbs, ER verbs, and IR verbs. And what this means is that they have endings on the verb that say either AR, ER, or IR. These are equivalent to in English where we would add to the beginning of the verb. So in order to form a present tense verb in Spanish, we cut off the ending of these verbs and we are left with a little particle of the verb called the stem. To the stem, we add the o, as, a, amos, depending on who is speaking. If it is yo, it's going to be o. If it's tú, it's going to be as. If he, it's going to be a. If she, it's going to be a. If it's nosotros, it's going to be amos. The next category of conjugation is going to be the ER and the IR. Let's do the steps again. We cut off the ER or IR. We're left with the stem. And then we add the endings to the verb. So in Spanish, if I'm having a conversation, I say I work, I'm just gonna say trabajo. I speak Spanish, I'm just gonna say hablo español. Very basic. 2 words, hablo español. If we're gonna ask somebody, do you speak Spanish? Just hablas español? Hablas español? You can say hablas tú español, but it's a little redundant to have tú, so we cut it off. Now you're gonna see it's a little bit more confusing because we have él, ella, and usted that take the third person part of the verb a. You might want to be a little bit specific of who is doing the action, but once you have the context of the conversation with the person that you're speaking to and you know who you're speaking about, you can start to drop the pronoun. Es guapa. ¿Quién? Mi novia. No, mi mamá. So if you need clarification, don't be afraid to ask. Sometimes it's very important, especially in cultures such as Central America that are very formal and use usted almost with everyone. You will need to know, are they talking about usted or are they talking about él or ella? Es idiota. ¿Quién? ¿El profesor? No, usted. Here's a basic Spanish conversation for you where nobody uses pronouns. ¿Cómo estás? Estoy bien. Me alegro. ¿Cómo te llamas? Me llamo Profe Bryce. Mucho gusto en conocerte. ¿Vas a ir a la fiesta? Sí, voy a ir a la fiesta. ¿Cuál es la dirección? Make sure you stay till the end of the video because we're going to have tip number 3 coming up. So guys, it takes a lot of practice to get to this comfortable spot in Spanish where you drop the pronouns. But if you practice over and over, you will get there. Make sure you're using the correct verb ending for the correct person. You're dropping the pronoun and you will sound like a native speaker. What? What are you talking about? You just told us to conjugate the verbs. Yes, I just told you to conjugate the verbs, but I don't want you to overgeneralize. Whenever we have 2 verbs together, we always conjugate the first one and leave the second one in the infinitive form. What do we do?
Conjugate the first one and leave the second one in the infinitive form.
That's correct. One way we often make a mistake is with the verb ir. Ir is often overlooked. It's just a verb with 2 letters, I, R, ir. But in the conjugation, of course, it's going to be voy, vas, va, vamos, van. Yo voy a la iglesia, tú vas a la iglesia, nosotros vamos a la iglesia. ¿Quieres ir a la iglesia? What did I say? I said, ¿quieres ir a la iglesia? Sí, quiero ir a la iglesia. Yo voy a la iglesia, but yo quiero ir a la iglesia. Don't forget, whenever we have the verb ir, we always use the preposition a. It is our friend. Yo voy a la iglesia. Yo quiero ir a la iglesia. Let's try another verb. We have the verb poder. It means I can. We use this in two verbs a lot. In English, we say I can go, I can eat, I can write. In Spanish, we're going to say I can to go, I can to eat, I can to write. Vamos a ver. Yo puedo ir. Yo puedo comer. Yo puedo escribir. ¿Puedes ir a la iglesia este domingo? Sí, puedo ir. Sí, quiero ir. Sí, voy a ir. We're going to add a second verb to our helping verb and leave it in the infinitive form. If you do this, conjugating the first verb, leaving the second in the infinitive form, you are going to sound like a Spanish speaker. Que Dios te bendiga. Suscríbete al canal para ver parte 3, 5 ways to speak better Spanish, part 3. It's coming up.